Shite. Shite. Shite, alright. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Just gonna do a check. Make sure that everything is in check. Bitch, why do I sound like I'm at church? Don't mind me, don't mind me. Audio is good, video is good, everything's good. Shitty, shitty, hey, 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 bitch. Yeah, you know that everything is fine, everything's alright, and I'm just doing time. So, as you guys can tell from the video, we are doing another episode of Lessons in Law number 7. We have gone through numbers 1 to 6, right? And each time I go through each section and level of this video, you will see that I'm explaining the energetic signature of said number. Now, some people be like, what? Numbers don't have energy? Everything has energy. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to know what you are talking about, what you are pointing to, what you are paying attention to, unless it had some kind of energetic signature behind said object. In fact, the fact that it is an object already tells you that that is an energetic signature of its own. Okay, so you cannot tell me that things do not have an energy. If anyone wants to argue, you know, you're a little bit lost. You're a little bit lost. I'm gonna have to tell you straight. You're a little bit lost. So each energetic signature of each number has its own kind of relation to what we would call numerology. Okay, so where a lot of people talk about numerology, what I'm actually trying to do is talk about the energetic signature of the number itself, which will help you to not only do your own numerology, but just break down any number by default once you actually get to know this on a deeper level. However, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because I did not learn this just based off looking at the numbers. I learned it from Dollar to Pilot Man on YouTube. If you want to see Dollar to Pilot Man on YouTube talking about these specific numbers on a more deeper level, on a deeper level, you can go check out Dolo the Pilot Man on YouTube. Shout out to him, because he is the holy grail of knowledge. And you know, a lot of people might even get in their egos and they'll be like, oh no, how can someone be the holy grail of knowledge? You just don't know. That's all I can say. You just don't know. For me to talk about him and reference him in each of my videos, there's a specific reason, because I don't just talk about anyone and any who, right? So a lot of people might get in their ego, especially I know people in my real life, when they hear me talk about, oh, well, you know, this is something that like I'll mention, and give credence to Dollar to Pilot Man. And then they might, you know, kind of get in their ego, like, why do they always talk about Dollar to Pilot Man? Because what I just said. So if you can't get out of your ego and realize credit is where credit is due, you know, you can't realize that knowledge and wisdom is where it is due, you know, and in fact, majority of knowledge and wisdom, if not all knowledge and wisdom that everyone is piggybacking off today, is just a watered down bullshit ass fucking indoctrinated lost version of whatever Dollar to Pilot Man is talking about. So I cannot lie about that, because that would make me a liar, and I fucking hate lying personally. You know, if you want to lie, big ups to you. I appreciate that you have your own journey and you have your own life that you want to live. But lying for me personally is not some energy that I like to be in. unless it is 100% necessary. Like maybe, you know, someone's got a gun to my face and I need to lie in order to protect my life. Bitch, I might, you know. But if it's talking about like situations that are not necessary, and even arguably in that situation, if I had a gun in my face, arguably I might not even lie then, because I also believe in the power of truth. And I know that truth is a very, very powerful agent of change. Okay, so barring all that, let's get that to the side. So when it comes to these numbers, obviously I learned them from his videos, but then I experienced them in my life, paying attention to the different numbers, reading the numbers myself, because you can only truly learn from experience, from paying attention to certain situations yourself. You can be told about a situation all you want, you can write and read about a situation all you want, but if you are not getting real world knowledge and experience, then you do not truly know what you are talking about or what you are learning on a deep level. This is also why people at certain jobs and certain industries will not even accept you unless you have X amount of experience, X amount of blah, 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 because they know that it's one thing to learn something and to know it, right? But to have wisdom, aka have experience, and know the ins and outs of how to actually utilize that knowing, that's a different story. And that's what a lot of people are actually trying to get at. Okay, so for me, I'm talking about this because I'm actually utilizing these energies, putting faith into works, you know, putting my knowledge into my experience and utilizing my knowledge via my experience, okay? Via my wisdom. So, damn. So, when it comes to all the numbers that I've talked about before, if you want to check those out, go to the other videos, check those out earlier in the stages, right? And that'll give you a breakdown of what we're about to talk about now and a little bit of backstory. However, if you just want to sit here and learn and you don't really care about the backstory, you just want to hear what I'm talking about, then stay tuned. Stay tuned. So, when it comes to lessons in law number 7, funny, we're 7 minutes in, just as I'm about to talk about it. When it comes to lessons in law number 7, right? Number 7 is talking about after the 6, which is us paying attention to a certain space, us building a mind based on our 4 and our 5, aka our overall idea of what we've just experienced or whatever world we've just enveloped ourselves in, and then our overall feeling and our reaction, right, to that overall idea and that experience that we've just enveloped ourselves in. So we've built an idea and we've built a feeling, and we've like, okay, yes, this is good. Okay, and then the feeling is like, the idea would be like, yes, this is good. Yes, this is something that is agreeable. Or no, this is something that I don't think is very, very nice. This is not exactly the go, right? And then our feeling is like, okay, yes, this is good. That's the thought. And then the feeling is like, I like this, you know, I enjoy this. I want this, I need this more in my life, right? And then like vice versa, you know, if it was a negative thing, you'd be like, oh, I don't like this, I don't want this, I don't need this in my life. Okay, so that's your thought and your feeling, right? And then we go into the 6. Now you've developed a mind, now you've got that 6, you're like, okay, now I know to pay attention to that more, or to not pay attention to that more. Now I know I want to experience that more, or I don't want to experience that more. That is the number 6. And then we've got on to 7. And now you're like, okay, let me separate from this whole entire shit and see it from the outside looking in. Because now I'm able to look at it from multiple different aspects, multiple different sides, 6 different avenues, right? From a balanced perspective, from a well-rounded perspective. For anyone who doesn't know that, 6 is actually the number of balance and harmony, right? And the reason why is because of what I've just explained. You've got an idea and a feeling on whether or not you actually enjoy or like or agree with said experiences, right? So now you're able to look at it from a balanced perspective, because you're like, I've seen this side of it. I've been in the experience, aka 1, 2, 3. I've been in the experience. I've gone through the experience, right? And then you're like, okay, I don't like this experience, or I do like this experience, aka 4, 5. And then 6 would be all encompassing, the 1, 2, the 3, and the 4, and the 5, all the way up to the 6. So now you've seen it from the inside. Now you've seen it from the outside, which is that 4 energy, again, separating, which is getting into what we're going to talk about, which is 7. Because 7 is after 6, 4 is after 3, and if you're catching on, you're starting to notice a pattern. Every time there's a third component, we're separating from that. We're separating and we're jumping out of that body, right? So 3 is always talking about the body. 6, again, the body, but it's just the mind. It's another expanded body. And then you're jumping out from it and you're seeing it from the outside looking in. You're like, okay, let me see this from the outside looking in, aka 4, 7. And that is allowing you to be able to have a more expanded or a more greater awareness of whatever you've just gone through. So when it comes to the number 7 and the number 4, right? This is talking about you separating yourself from an experience, having foreknowledge on an experience, because now you're able to see before something happens. You know what I mean? Before you experienced it, but now you're able to have foresight because you've already gone through something like that. Therefore, you know the ins and outs and you know how to deal with that situation on a better, more greater, expanded level, right? Then 7, mind you, this can play out negatively or positive. You know, you can have foresight for the wrong type of shit, and then you end up blocking your own experiences because you assume that something's going to be one way, when in actuality, it might have changed, it might have transformed. And that allows you to not actually utilize your 4 energy to the greatest extent, because you've utilized it for negative purposes, to block or to validate your own ego, right? Rather than to actually see something from the outside looking in. And then we have 7, right? Number 7 is like a greater, a more expanded version of a 4. You're separating from that experience, right? Severing your experience, or severing your connection to that experience, and you're able to either rise above it and see it from the outside looking in, aka 7, you know, that's why it looks like that, like 7, you know, because it's like a ledge. It's like a ledge on top of a podium, or what do they call it? A ledge on top of a pillar, right? So the pillar is what you are able to see, or how you are able to rise above that, right? Going up from the ground. And then the ledge is you able to kind of have something to stand on, have something to be able to look down on whatever you've just gone through. So with the 6, that would be that all-encompassing experience, that all-encompassing wisdom and knowledge, right? That balance and harmony perspective between both sides, the polar opposites, right? Which is funny as well, because I also did the yin and yang sign on the last what's it called? On the last video, the yin and yang sign, which represented balance and harmony, you know, the light and the dark, right? Now with the 7, you can either separate and go rise above the situation, and you can see it from a greater, more expanded or an angelic perspective, right? Because that's what an angel represents, is rising above something. That's why they have wings. They're able to be light. They're able to be free. So we all have the potential to jump in our own angelic energies, and we also have the potential to jump in our own demonic energies, which would be another aspect of 7, where you are separating still, but it's like an inverted 7. So now you're inverting yourself and you're separating and going down, you're going below, you're going beneath, and you're not able to see that situation from a higher perspective. And if anything, looking at that situation from below, and you're not able to see the full surrounding of it. You're only able to see what you're encompassed by. You're only able to see what's above you, what's around you, what's constricting or restricting you, right? So this is where a lot of people who play out the seven energy on a negative aspect, they'll feel themselves getting imprisoned or imprison their own mentality, right? They'll feel themselves feeling restricted, feeling encaged, feeling lost, right? Feeling a whole bunch of shit to do with that restriction kind of energy, or with that demonic kind of energy, right? A lot of people play out this energy even without even realizing it. And then they'll feel like they're justified for doing so, but without realizing that they could have jumped into their angelic energy. They could have jumped into the higher octave version of their 7. And each number has its own, so like each number will have its own yin and yang. Each number will have its own light and dark, as people would say, But those are kind of archaic terms. I don't like to technically use those terms, because light and dark can also have negative connotations, when really light and dark is not negative or positive. There's some situations where you might need to be in the dark, aka be unaware of something, right? Because that might actually be positive for you. You might need to stop watching something on YouTube because you know that is actually inflicting your mental and negatively, right? And vice versa. You may need to be aware of something, bring something to the light, because whatever was in the dark is actually playing out negatively. So they can play in negative or positive. You get the idea. I don't want to go too deep into that. But it's just to say that light and dark are not explicitly tied to good and bad, negative and positive. Like, it is not bad that it's nighttime. Like, what the fuck? I don't know where people got lost, where they started to think that dark equals bad and light equals good. That's just like confusion at that point, because you go out at night sometimes and you still enjoy yourself, and you can still do beautiful things that actually make you feel light, that make you feel, and I don't mean light as in good. I mean light as in feel free, feel not so heavy, like light in weight, right? So again, with this 7 energy, it's allowing you to kind of see something from a more greater perspective, which allows you to utilize the 1, the 2, and the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6 for a more greater purpose. And that can play out again negatively or positively, a higher octave or lower octave, because you can utilize it and allow it to kind of be a tool for you to actually develop better experiences, to develop more greater experiences, for you to go and expand your horizons and experience something which is more beneficial for you and others involved. Or you can utilize it again for a greater purpose, but negatively. So then you're allowing it to kind of validate your ego. You're allowing it to validate your frustrations. You're allowing it, like, what I'm getting in my mind is like the kind of person who goes through an experience, right? 1, 2, 3, you develop your own thought and feeling about that experience. 4, 5, 6, and then you're able to kind of look at each experience, and now you're like validating it in a way where you're like, okay, this experience was negative, I feel negatively about it, I don't like this experience. Let's say like you had someone that manipulated you, right? now you're going into that situation using your 7 energy, and you're like, okay, now I know not to trust anyone, that I shouldn't trust anyone, and that all people are manipulative. So now that's you utilizing your 7 energy for a negative demonic purpose, right? And now you're not actually seeing the situation from the perspective that you could possibly see it from, being in your angelic energy, right? You're actually just utilizing it to see it from a demonic space. And then this is what leads people to kind of be in more demonic energies. And then they might even turn out to be a manipulator themselves inadvertently, because they are so focused on that energy and they're constantly in that world. Or they were already manipulative in general, because at the end of the day, everything is a reflection of our internal space. Whether you allowed it or whether you acted in that energy yourself, if you are constantly in the world where you're constantly seeing everybody being manipulative, the common denominator is you. Because there's people out there who don't experience that on a constant basis. There's people out there who just experience people who's positive, who's always giving. You know, obviously we all have different scales in between, right? You're bound to come across someone who's on the negative side, who might be more manipulative, but we're talking about percentage levels. So if it's more on a percentage of you constantly experiencing manipulative, negative people, whether you were manipulative or negative yourself, or you were just in that space where you constantly allowed people to manipulate you. Either way, you're in that world of manipulation and you're allowing yourself to sit in that world. So that's what I talk about when I say everything's a reflection, because some people might be like, well, I've never manipulated, and I constantly experience people manipulating me. Yeah, because you constantly allow it. You constantly let people manipulate you. You don't actually speak up for yourself. You don't have any balls, you know, like whatever it is, whatever the case is for you. Everybody's case is different. You know, I speak from my own personal experience as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to have so much confidence in what I'm saying. So when I say you don't have any balls, that's because I know when I was allowing people to manipulate me, I had no balls. You know, I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to speak up, you know. So all of that ties in to why you experience constant negative circumstances, whether it's manipulation or not, you know. But I just speak from experience, you know, because I was flunked out. I low-key still am in a lot of ways, working my way out of that shit, right? But just to give you kind of a context to understand as well, okay, why is he talking about this? If I'm talking about something, like majority of the time, you can guarantee that's based on my experiences. Because I don't like to talk about stuff that I do not know. Even in my real life, you'll get people who will literally tell you that about me. I do not like to talk about experiences or things that I do not know. And I will literally, like, let's say I'm having a dispute, like we're having a debate, you know, maybe we disagree on something. For me to come to a common ground, I have to know what I'm talking about. For me to be able to come and argue and debate about something, I have to know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'll literally come up, I'll be deadpan to you. I was like, I actually, honestly, I'll either say it like this: honestly, I don't even know what I'm talking about, or honestly, I don't know enough about the situation in order to actually argue or go against that. Or I'll just say, look, this is how I see it, but I also do not have that much knowledge or experience in this area. But just based on my own experiences and what I do see, this is how I see it. You know what I mean? So I'm always quite frank with people. You know, Frank Gallagher. No jokes. I don't know why I said that. Frank Gallagher from freaking Shameless. Shout out to that show, I guess. I guess, because I mentioned it. But yeah. So when it comes to all of this stuff, don't mind me, guys. My freaking throat right now feels clogged up. It's good now. It's good now. So yeah. A reason why I also wanted to talk about this as well in relation to the number 7 was because I was already going to make a video about being in the position that I'm in and my own personal experiences. And then I started to realize how what I was about to talk about actually encapsulates and gives a great example of the 7 energy. So I'll get into that right now. So when it comes to my own experiences, what the topic of the video was going to be was how a lot of the coping mechanisms, a lot of the I'm just going to pull this mic away because I feel like my breath might be a little bit heavy right now. So yeah, that's good. So a lot of the experiences that I've gone through and to this point, that's led me to this point today, has allowed me to kind of see things from a different perspective. Where I noticed, especially when I was first doing a lot of my healing and letting go and releasing a lot of my traumas and dealing with a lot of my shadows as an individual, a lot of the time, the techniques and the avenues that people would recommend for you to go down in order to actually heal and to deal with your shadow aspect, to deal with your negative demonic energies, right? For anybody who doesn't know about like shadow work and stuff like that, when I say shadow aspect, I'm talking about negative shit that you're holding on to, negative unhealed shit that you do not want to deal with, shit that you're unaware of, that may be a toxic trait that you might need to work on, like all of that kind of stuff, right? So when I was trying to deal with these, I was in this perspective where a lot of the things that people would tell me seemed reasonable. Let's say, like, I'll just give one example. Let's say a lot of people say it's good to talk about your stuff. It's good to talk about your problems. It's good to express your emotions, right? And maybe I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong as well. Just as a preface before I get into this topic, I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. Everyone has their own coping mechanisms, and some people need that in order for them to actually heal, and some people don't need that. Some people, that actually makes things worse, you know? It depends. You have to be aware and you have to know what's right for you in your own situation, because it may be right now, but in a few weeks, in a few years' time, it may be the wrong thing to do. It may get to the point where it's actually toxic and it's hurting you. So a lot of people will recommend, you know, you should vent about your emotions. You should talk about your emotions with people. It'll allow you to feel them. It'll allow you to let go, right? And yes, at one point in my journey, that was definitely a necessary tool for me to actually let go, right? But it got to a certain point now, even to this day, where I was looking at it and I was like, actually, this is not helping me. Me talking about this shit is not actually making any difference in my healing journey. And in fact, it got to a point where it was actually more of a detriment. And what I've noticed now, I've gotten to a point in my journey where it's better to just actually not talk about it at all. Majority of the time, like, but you know, there might be a few times where it might be good for me to talk about it. Majority of the time, you know, I'm talking about majority, not talk about it at all. Or if I'm expressing it, it needs to be in a more subtle kind of way, not so outward, you know, because a lot of people will say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. But for me in my journey, majority of the time, of what I've noticed is that it's not okay to be upset. It's not okay to be angry. And I'm just talking from personal experience. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, again, just in case anyone might get a little bit confused. I'm just talking from my own personal experience, what's helped me and what's allowed me to let go of a lot of my shit and to be more light and to separate from that experience and to see it from a more angelic perspective is to just let it go. Gaslight myself. You might have heard me talk about in my other videos, you know, because a lot of people will have a negative connotation about that term, gaslighting. Yes, gaslighting is not necessarily the best thing to do when it's coming from another person gaslighting you, right? But for me, in my own personal experience, gaslighting myself has been one of the best things and one of the healthiest things that's actually helped me to let go of a lot of my shit, right? Just completely gaslight myself, whether I have to completely deny that I'm actually experiencing that negative thing, right? And I'm not saying denying that I'm experiencing that negative emotion, just in case anyone gets a little confused, like, okay, so you're denying your emotions? No, I'm not denying my emotions. I acknowledge that I might be upset in that moment, allow myself to be upset for that little bit of time, which usually I'll keep it to a limit. I don't like to be upset for too long. If I'm reaching 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's a little bit too long already. But if I feel like it's necessary in that specific time, I'll allow myself. But even that, you're getting steep, you know, I'm getting ready to give myself a smack on the back of the hand, spiritually speaking, you know, not physically speaking. I don't hit myself, not anymore. I used to be in that self-harm space. In case anyone, you know, not like anyone gives a shit, but just as a little bit of context, you know what I mean? So you can tell that I'm a freaking bit too much of an open book, because some of the shit that I mention, I know a lot of people on other channels, they wouldn't really mention, because, you know, that's not necessarily something that they would like to mention. I know a lot of people are private, you know, a lot of people like to keep things to themselves. Me, I'm kind of the opposite a lot of the time. I like to be a little bit too open. So I have to kind of teach myself to keep things to myself. I sometimes need to kind of like just, except it's not a dog that barks. I'm it. Private life. Hold on. Because this dog just reality. That's another thing as well. Might be as well why me gaslighting myself, not expressing my shit, has been more of a benefit to me, because the natural state of being, express everything. It's too about it. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck. Yeah, a lot of things people. I had to even, you know, these certain things I had told you, I did not want you to tell other people. I didn't think that I had to say that. And me, that was the moment I realized, I had that moment of realization in school. Some people are very private and they do not want other people to know certain things about themselves. That was a little bit of a fuck me. I couldn't afford shit. Like pretty open to tell people that, you know. Situations and not so much. Honestly, when I'm talking about the broke thing, I did get embarrassed about that. You know, like, even like when I was in primary school, I just used to be like, yeah, my dad smokes weed. Like he smokes weed every freaking day. I didn't think that was a thing to be private about. You know what I mean? Until, you know, your parents come and they're like, you know, can you not talk about that? I want to. Anyways, we're getting a little bit off track. We're getting a little bit off topic here, guys. When I say we, I mean me. So when it comes to that, all of that, that's giving me the opportunity to kind of separate from the situation, right? Separating my own way and seeing that a lot of the topics and a lot of the technique that I used to be told, and even now I'm being told, I have a lot of conversations with people in my real life where they'll tell me, you know, allows them and helps them to kind of let go of their shit and allows them to kind of heal at odds, I don't know. You get the idea. I'm sure when I say it, it makes sense in my mind, but I have to just clarify because it might not make sense to other people. But sometimes I might say stuff like at ends, you know, and people might be like, what the fuck does at ends mean? Like at odds, or, you know, opposite, right? Separate, you know, going back to that 7 energy. I'm now separating myself from that situation, not intentionally, you know what I mean? It just happens like that, where they'll be like, okay, like back to that example that I was talking about before, you know, like, oh, you know, I feel like I really should talk about it and I really should express it. And even I find myself in other situations, people just talking about it with me. They're like, you know, I really want to talk about this thing just so I can get it off my mind. And then they're like, you know, if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you want to get something off, you know, I'm here, I'm available. I will will indulge. But it's very rare for me, I've noticed. And if anything, I've found that it's more beneficial, like I was saying before, to just not indulge into that. And so I'm finding myself in that 7 energy again. And I'm finding myself separating a lot of what a lot of other people would consider in that aspect of beneficial for their mental health, because if anything, the complete opposite is usually the healthy thing for me to do, just at this point in time. So it's very interesting. Even like, what's it called? Even I'll find myself sometimes, like I think it was like the other day, we were talking about it, me and my sister. And we were talking about how, like, because back in the day, we used to always talk about it. Even now, I'll still encourage people, don't dwell in your shit, right? Do not dwell in your negative emotions, right? But because what I've noticed for myself at this point in time is I find myself very rarely dwelling in my emotions negatively. I find myself finding it very easy to just jump out of negative shit, to just let go. And if anything, I've noticed my spirit is kind of like sometimes, because everything's about balance. We've got to understand this, right? We've got to understand that everything is about balance. So whether you are in a more positive space or whether you're in a more negative space, you're going to experience negative shit, or vice versa. You're going to experience positive shit. This is why people who are really, really depressed can also have really, really profound, positive, beautiful experiences. Because your spirit is always trying to find a balancing scale to rebalance itself. So if you're too much in the positive, your spirit's going to find a negative experience for you to rebalance itself and come back to that center path, right? Because your spirit is neither. Your spirit is not either of these things, positive or negative. These are just experiences that your spirit likes to utilize in order to travel through each moment, each aspect, each realm, each space, you know. So when we indulge too much in one or the other, our spirit will want us to recalibrate, recorrect, right? So what I've found for myself is that in certain situations where I've found myself in a negative aspect, I've found myself actually feeling the need to constantly experiencing things that are more positive, beneficial. So I'm finding myself actually like hungry for experience a little bit more, much in always negative, like, but just a little bit more fearful, or a little bit more in that space of uncertainty, a little bit more in that space of opposite of positive. So I found myself even going out at nighttime, going for walks at nighttime, and going into like certain places where I would normally be afraid, or I normally wouldn't want to go at nighttime, and find myself actually, you know what, this is good for me. I need this experience, because my spirit is hungry and craving for a new experience, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So my spirit is like, you know what, I look over there, I'm like, oh, that looks a little bit creepy. I don't know if I want to go down there. But then I'm like, oh, actually, this is the perfect thing for me to do, because it will allow me to experience that energy that my spirit is craving for, in order to rebalance and recalibrate and bring itself back to a center ground, but without actually putting myself in a fully negative situation. You know what I mean? Because I'd rather be experiencing all that fear, all that uncertainty from going out at nighttime and going into little like areas that's like a little bit more dark or a little bit more scary looking, you know, like, rather than going through experiences at, like, let's say at home, where now I have to face a certain experiences where I'm having like a real massive dispute with someone because we're having an argument. It's like a massive disagreement and so on and so forth. So I don't like those kind of experiences, because then it leads to bad blood, like bad negative energy, and then it can build, because not only is there you experiencing that negative emotion, now it's someone else. So now that's building like a cloud of energy in that. And you both have to be strong enough in order to overcome and kill that negative cloud, right? And I know I'm strong enough, but I know a lot of people in the world are not necessarily strong enough, and they will just allow that to fester. So I don't even like to let it get to that point. You know what I mean? Because I can't be betting on other people to get over their shit. For me, I just bet on myself. I know I'm going to get over my shit. I know I will always be able to find a way out, whatever it is. You know, whether it's a extremely harsh, negative, horrible experience, I already know. Because I've been through that many experiences that I'm so confident and I'm so sure in myself that I'm like, even if I was to go through a situation that would completely like trigger the fuck out of me, like a couple of weeks ago, like I had some, like, I'll probably just keep this one private. I'll keep it to a minimum of explaining the details, right? But I, like a couple months ago maybe, or something like that, I had an experience that really shook me up, really shook the energies up, right? But that was also a catalyst for me to see how I'm able to just bounce back really that. I can really just bounce back out of any negative experience, and I don't necessarily need to worry about any of that shit. I just need to know that I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to experience a lightening phase. I'm going to experience myself releasing and letting go intentionally. You know what I mean? So it's like a lesson for me to be able to separate and not attach negative shit. Again, back to that 7 energy. So now I'm able to see how negative experiences are actually beneficial for me. How negative things that we go through can actually be beneficial as long as we don't attach too much weight to it, as long as we keep things light, right? In weight. You know, don't think too heavy about shit. When you think too heavy about shit, positive or negative, because you could think heavy about a positive experience. Oh my gosh, I really want this positive experience to happen. Oh my gosh, like now you're holding on to it. You're trying to drag it down with you. You know what I mean? No, we shouldn't be dragging shit down to us, because that's how we got into this situation of things being so heavy, things being so harsh in this world already. We should be lightening ourselves and rising above to whatever we want to get to. That way, if we've got a negative experience, instead of dragging ourselves down with that negative experience, because now you're in a heavy space, you're constantly being in that heavy mindset, you're constantly pulling things down to you, spiritually speaking, right? Then when you get to the negative experience, you're also pulling that down, because you're in that mechanism mentally. You're constantly used to pulling things down and bringing them down. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, hold on to this experience. I want to hold on to this positive experience. I don't want it to end. I don't want this to stop happening. And that's you kind of esoterically pulling it down. So then when you're in a negative experience, you might want, you want to get out of it. You want to be light. But because every time you're in a positive experience, you've trained your brain and you've trained your mental mechanism to be like pulling things down, to make things heavy, to hold on to it, to always want it to stay, to always want to encage and encapsulate all of that energy so that it never ever changes. That's why it's important to always be in that representation, or in that readily transformational energy. Transformation, that's like people, Dollar Pilot, man, shout out to him for actually putting me onto this as well. Change is the only thing that's constant. It doesn't matter what we see in our reality, life, God, the universe, whatever you want to point at, change is the only thing that's constant. We don't ever see anything staying constantly the same, right? The only thing that stays the same is our spirit. Our spirit is eternal. Anything that's in the physical is always subject to change. And even our spirit is always constantly trying to change, because our spirit always wants to jump into a new energy, a new space. The way you can tell this, or, you know, because some people might be like, how do you know that? How can you say that with such confidence? How do you know what our spirit wants, right? Well, when it comes to experiences, right, you can go through something, you can play a video game, for example, or you can play, you know, you can go through an experience. You eventually know you're going to get tired of that experience and you're going to want something new, right? So that's your spirit telling you. Your spirit does not like to keep things the same. Your spirit does not like too much routine and pattern. Eventually your spirit's going to be like, fuck this shit. We need to go and jump into something new. I don't care what experience it is, as long as we experience something new. So you could end up doing something that you thought was boring before when you were really into your game, but now that you're sick of that game, that thing that's boring seems so much. That change is the only thing that's constant. So when you're in that state of being where you want something to constantly stay the same, you're always holding on to it, you're always pulling it down. You're in that opposite energy of what is natural, right? So you're in an unnatural energy at that point. And you are actually in that demonic space where, like I was saying, you know, you're looking at an experience instead of rising above it and being light and being able to see it from the outside looking in and know now is the time to let go. You're like, okay, no, I'm beneath this. I want to encompass and envelop myself in this world, constantly be in this space, right? And that's you jumping into your demonic energies again, right? So all of this kind of stuff is a representation of how you can kind of see things, and you can kind of see how our spirit actually prefers that change energy, right? So I really want to kind of give this perspective in the clearest way possible so that other people can actually be able to come to this space and develop their own perspective on what I'm talking about. Because that's what it's all about. You know, I don't want people to come to me and constantly feel like you have to learn and I'm the only one that you want to learn from and blah, blah, blah. I want everybody to be able to access this perspective and this knowledge in their own way. You know, so shout out to him for even putting me onto this stuff, for giving me the opportunity to be able to come at this with my own perspective, to develop my own way of seeing this and to express it, right, from my own individual space. So when I talk about these things, the reason why I go such deep into detail as well is because of that. You know, I want people to be able to develop their own awareness in this space, but it takes you to actually develop this for yourself. I can't develop it for you. You know what I mean? So it's like Dolo says in his videos, I can take you to the water, but you have to build your own cup. You have to learn how to make your own cup. I can't give you the cup, because if I give you the cup, you won't actually utilize it or know how to utilize the cup properly, right? And this, spiritually speaking, if I give you the mind, if I give you the perspective, aka if I give you my own mind, you won't know how to maintain it. Only I know how to maintain it because I'm the one who helped to build this mind. So only I know how to make sure that this mind doesn't freaking crumble down and fall. You know what I mean? So it takes everyone, each one teach one, for me to be able to give you a piece of it. So now you're able to look at that piece and you're able to analyze it and you're able to be like, okay, this is the aspect of his mind that he's been able to build. Now I'm able to look at this and I'm able to be able to figure out how to build my own way, but still using it. It's like a blueprint almost. You know what I mean? So it's like a not like a tutorial, because that's also like building. That's also in a way is low-key building your cup for you. It's like a guideline. So yeah. Like I was saying before, you know, earlier in the video, kind of going back a little bit of a backtrack. When it comes to, a lot of those perspectives that used to be beneficial for me and I can still see being beneficial for a lot of people, a lot of that stuff I've actually found myself separating from and looking at from the outside looking in. And if anything, it's less beneficial for me now. It's detrimental. You know, because if I was to sit there and say, I have to separate, I have to only experience positive things, that would be detrimental, because then my spirit would want to balance it out. My spirit would make an experience and force me into experience of me experiencing something more on the negative scale, which is why a lot of people, would find themselves struggling if they always want to experience beneficial things, but then they find themselves like constantly in a positive space. So your spirit is looking for something. It's like, bitch, get me the page, because I want to change. It's constant, so you can only all the time thing that you should be doing constantly all the time. Anything else in a cage, right? You're going to restrict yourself. Your spirit does not like to be restricted. You don't even like to be restricted. You know what I mean? Like if someone tries to restrict you and tries to keep you in one aspect and one way of doing things, eventually you're going to be like, bitch, I'm tired of this shit. I'm going to rebel. Even if you're not a rebellious person, you might be the most rule abiding person, right? But if someone keeps you subject to rules on a constant basis, eventually you're going to be like, bitch, get me the fuck out of this. I don't give a fuck what I have to do. You'll break all the rules. Every single rule that you thought was good, you'll break all of them just to get yourself some change, to get yourself some peace of mind, right? So all of that is pretty much the 7 energy, as I was talking about. That is how we can break down and we can look at the 7 energy, right? Be able to separate from something and see it from the outside looking in, rise above a situation and utilize your wisdom and knowledge from the 1, 2, 3, the 4, 5, 6. Utilize your wisdom and knowledge from all those experiences that you've gone through, your thoughts and feelings that have helped you to kind of put into perspective those experiences, and now you're able to be the judge, or not the judge, I don't think that's the right word. Now you're able to be like the shaman, or the yeah, I guess you could say judge. That's probably might be the best term to use it. So now other people are able to come to you, and other people are able to see, okay, you know the ins and outs of this situation. You know how to deal with this situation. You know the ins and outs of whatever specific scenario we're talking about. And that's how you know someone's in more of their 7 energy and they've utilized the 7 energy to their benefit, right? And they've gone and understood the ins and outs, whether it's for one situation, 2, 3, 4, or many situations, like how I'm able to break it down now in order for me to be able to even talk about the 7 energy, how I've been talking about it. You know that I've developed a very strong sense of that 7 energy, right? And as well, all of these energies are also representations of the different dimensions. So we only have 9 dimensions. There's only 9 dimensions. And the reason why I can say that, and the reason why that is true, is because once you get past 9, it is only compound numbers. We have 1 and 0. Those are 2 dimensions put together. 1 is a dimension and 0 is not technically a dimension. That is just 0. That is just no thing. That is like a representation of your spirit, because your spirit is just utilizing all of these forms, right? If you can jump in and out of each number, you can utilize 1, 2, 3, 4. You are not those, because every time you would change as a person. Like you wouldn't be you, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? You would be a different being. That is not true. So we know that the 0, if you peel back all the layers, beyond all of that, if you take off everything that you are utilizing in order to express yourself, in order to transform, there is no thing. There is nothing behind all of that. So that's why I say your spirit is no thing. Your spirit is just your space. And you have your own space, and we all have our own individual space, and we're also in a greater space, right? Which is all of our spaces together as one. But we also utilize our own solo individual space as well amongst the space that we are in. So when it comes to there being 9 dimensions, I was going to say something in relation to that. Yeah, when it comes to those being the dimensions as well, if you want to like learn more about each individual dimension, you can obviously look at my other lessons and laws videos 1 through 6, and that'll explain. So not only am I breaking down in these videos the actual energetic signature of the number, but also the dimension, because those are also inexplicably, if that's even the right word, I'm not 100% sure of what that word means, but I utilized it. I used it because I thought, you know, it sounded like the right word. Those are all tied together because obviously the energetic signature of the number itself comes from the dimension. It's like, you know, for us to experience that dimension, that energetic signature is just a way of explaining that dimension itself. You know what I mean? So for someone to be able to jump and utilize that dimensional body on a more greater level, they'd be able to explain it like me, you know, or they'd be able to act and be the energy that I just explained to you. So like I was saying with the 7, they would be able to be that person that people could go to in order to overstand a situation. Same with the 4 energy. That's like just a lower, I don't want to say lower because lower can have negative connotations, but that's just a less expanded version of the 7. So even when you go to people and you're like, oh, you know, I really want to go to this person because they always know what to say. They always know how to deal with my situation. They always know the right thing to say about my situation. That's them playing out that 4 energy. So they're able to have a strong 4th dimensional body. And for you to be able to feel like you have to go to that person and you feel like you have to go see them in order to get that foresight and to see that foreknowledge of the situation, you haven't built a strong 4th dimensional body yet. Everyone has these bodies though. It's just that your one is not fully strong to the level of that person for you to be able to go to them. But you'll still have your own instances of that situation too. You know, you might have some other people in your life who might come to you for that certain foreknowledge. Maybe people in my life always come to them for like relationship advice, you know, but they might not come to them for general advice to do with life in general, overall. For me, I've always been that kind of aspect in my own life. People will come to me for general, like overall life advice. So I always was able to build a strong 4th dimensional body growing up. But I still had a ways to go as well in my own world. You know, for me to even come across Dolo's video, he helped me to kind of get that even stronger, to not only to know where my strengths were and how I was developing a strong 4th dimensional body, to even expand myself even greater so that I can even expand myself to have a 7th dimensional body, to have an 8th dimensional stronger, to have a 9th dimensional body that's stronger. And 9 is just being able to see all of that stuff, it's like basically being able to have wisdom and knowledge over all experiences. You know what I mean? Which I'm actually starting to get better at now. You know, probably about a year ago, I wasn't so strong at that. You know, there were certain situations where I couldn't really fully develop my own wisdom and knowledge based on that. Now I'm getting to that point where I'll even see certain situations, someone might tell me about something, I already got like very, very, like I got ins and outs now. You know, I've got many different aspects, many different ways to look at it. I can break it down on all the different ways. I can tell them what it could be, what it might be, and then I also can tell them what I think it is, and then I can also just branch all of that together and then I eventually come to a conclusion and be like, it's actually most likely this. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll tell me, yeah, that's exactly that. 9 times out of 10. Obviously, there's still some situations where I might be wrong per se, but even then, even in certain situations, I also sometimes get that inkling like it might not necessarily be that I'm wrong. It might just be that the way that I explained it wasn't fully the best way in order to actually explain what I'm actually seeing, if that makes sense to anyone. So yeah, these are the different ways that you can understand or overstand your different numerology, your different energetic signatures of each number. And this is what it will allow you to be able to, how do I say, know the ins and outs of each number, and now you'll be able to apply them in your life every day. So now, even if you forget, you can come back to the video, and even just based on like the start of the video, right? Because at the start, I do a quick breakdown, then I go deeper into it. So you'll be able to look at the start of the video, skip like 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes in. You'll be able to hear me first. Oh, 7 is this, or 6 is this, you know? And then you'll get like your memory will be jogged. Now you'll be able to go back throughout each part of your day, and you'll be able to say, okay, yep, okay, oh, this is a 6 type of situation. At first it will be a little bit tricky because, you know, obviously it takes time. It took me time, you know. I didn't actually know a lot of how to deal with this. In fact, when I first learned about it, I was like going throughout my day and I was like, I don't know, this could be a 5, this could be a 4, this could be a 3. I don't even know what energetic signature this number could be, you know, placed into. But I, you know, with practice and with experience, I eventually got to that point where I was like, I know this is the 4 experiences. Oh yes, I know this is the 7 experience. Oh my gosh, this is the 5 experience right now. Oh shit, okay, cool. And then I eventually got to that point where I could just break down like each part, and I'm like, okay, yep, this is a 5 right now. This person's talking to me about a 5 experience. And even now, like there's still a deeper level for me to go even into that. Because now that'll eventually get you into the aspect of, you know, being able to utilize a number to actually kind of expand a situation, or to put a nip in. Like, let's say if someone's in their 5 energy and they're in that 5 energy, but they're expressing it in a negative way. So they're going through constant experiences that they don't like, right? That they don't want to go through, right? Like let's say, this is what I utilize a lot with certain people as well that are in that space. They could be constantly in that emotion of, oh, I don't like this experience, or I don't want this experience. And they're constantly in that feeling and that emotion of reacting to said experience. And then I kind of come in with that 6 energy of like, because 6 is about whatever you pay attention to, whatever you put your time and energy into. So what I'll do is I'll take our time and energy. Let's direct our time and energy over here. Now, boom, I've taken them out of that 5 space, and now our time and energy is going to something more productive. So now they're able to go back to 1 and develop a more clean slate. And now they're able to rise above in each number, each dimension, and be a little bit more that they were so caught up into, right? Stuck into. And now they're able to kind of go into a better space for themselves. And then each time in situations like that, you know, I'll be able to go deeper on that level. Because right now I'm explaining that to you guys after the fact. I wasn't in that moment thinking to myself, oh, utilize to counteract their 5 energy. You know, no, I was just acting. You know what I mean? I was just being. But now that I've explained that in this video, now I'm going on that deeper aspect myself, seeing how not only do I play out that energy naturally, because we all do these things naturally. These are all natural energies. So don't let anyone ever think or tell you that you don't do something every day. Always do everything every day. It's just whether or not you do it on a lower octave or a higher octave, whether or not you do it in a more natural way or a more unnatural way, whether or not you do it in a more beneficial way or a more unbeneficial way, right? So don't let anyone try tell you that you don't do something. Like when it comes to especially spiritual stuff, like you don't like I was just explaining earlier, you know, with the four energy, I was explaining to you how if you go to someone for foresight, for foreknowledge, then you'll be able to know that they have a stronger fourth dimensional body. But not once did I say to you that you did not have a fourth dimensional body, because we are all creating and doing this shit every single day. That's what I'm trying to say. We all do everything every day. So whether someone tries to tell you, oh, you're not a medium, or, you know, you're not a healer, what are you talking about? You heal and let go of shit every single fucking day. So nobody can tell you that you're not a healer. Nobody can tell you that you're not a medium. We naturally do these things every day. It's just, are you aware of it? Do you know what you're doing, or do you not know what you're doing? That's the difference between someone who's spiritually adept or someone who's a proper medium or a proper healer versus someone who's just unaware. They don't know that they're doing that. You know what I mean? And it may take them a lot of experiences to even develop that awareness to be able to see it from that aspect. So, about it.